Imagine you graduate college, you get a job, it's a real job, not a joke one, like $60,000 a year. You do everything right, you split rent with a partner, you cook at home, you skip vacations, you save. And then one day, maybe around 26 or 27, you sit down with a spreadsheet and you try to figure out if you can have a child. And the spreadsheet just stares back at you. Not in a dramatic way, not in a crying way, just sort of blankly, like a machine that has run the numbers and has nothing comforting to say. So, you close that laptop, you tell yourself you'll revisit it next year. And next year comes and you close the laptop again. This is not a Gen Z laziness story. This is not a Gen Z avocado toast story. This is a math story. And the math is strange. More than 7 in 10 Americans now say raising children is unaffordable. Not uncomfortable, not tight, unaffordable. A CBS News poll found that 77% of respondents believe it is harder to raise a family today than it was for previous generations. And if you look at the US fertility rate, it hit a record low in 2024 at 1.6 births per woman, down from a trend that has been sliding for nearly 2 decades. The replacement level you need to maintain a stable population is 2.1 births per woman. The US is at 1.7, maybe lower. And it's still falling. Here is the question nobody is asking plainly. This is not a cultural question, it's not about Gen Z being soft or scared or too focused on themselves. The actual question is this: what does the math look like for a 25-year-old with a normal salary trying to have a kid in 2026? And why is that math so much worse than it was for someone doing the exact same thing 25 years ago? That's what we're going to break down today. We're going to explain how this system works and why it's getting weird. And by the end of this, you're going to understand why the birth rate isn't a cultural problem, it's an incentive problem. And those are very different things. One important note before we go in: I'm not going to tell you whether to have kids, that's your business. I'm not emotionally invested in your reproductive decisions. What I am interested in is why a specific set of financial signals is systematically steering an entire generation away from a decision that used to be almost automatic, because that's where things get interesting. The central metaphor I'm going to use for this entire video is a vending machine, a very specific kind of vending machine, the kind that takes your money, makes the mechanical noise, starts to drop the product, and then stops just before it falls. You've seen this machine, you know this machine. The product is just hanging there, you can see it, it's right there, but it won't drop, and you have to decide, do you put in more money, or do you walk away? That's the machine Gen Z is standing in front of. The product is a stable funded family. The machine takes your salary, and the product keeps not dropping. Let's talk about what that actually costs. The first thing most people think when you say having a kid is expensive is that they're thinking of the obvious costs. Diapers, strollers, baby clothes that last 4 months, and yes, those cost money, but those are not the problem. The problem is not the small visible costs. The problem is the invisible architecture of raising a child in 2026 America that most people haven't added up in a single number. A new estimate from LendingTree puts the total price tag of raising a child from birth to 18 at $303,418 in 2026. That's the first time the figure has $300,000 since LendingTree began the analysis in 2023, and that number does not include college. Because the analysis ends when a child turns 18, it does not include college. With the average cost of a US college education about $38,000 a year, that could add another $152,000 to the total. So, the full number, if you are raising a child from birth for a 4-year college degree, is somewhere around $455,000 minimum in today's dollars for one kid. The total cost to raise a child from birth through high school now approaches the median sales price of a home in the United States, which was $356,000 as of January of this year. Let that sit for a moment. One child costs roughly the same as buying a house, and most people in this generation can't afford to buy a house either. So, what you're actually looking at is a person choosing between two things that are both individually out of reach, the house or the kid. Except in practice, the choice is usually neither because the math doesn't work for either one alone. Now, let's look at where the money is actually going, because this is where the machine really reveals itself. Childcare costs are by far the highest expense for families with children under 5, not rent, not food, childcare. An infant child care is estimated to cost $17,264 in 2026. And the average cost of raising a child in the first 5 years is $29,325 per year. Think about what $29,000 a year means in context. The median earnings for full-time workers in the United States are about $62,192 a year as of 2025. That's before taxes. So, if you are a median earner, you are looking at spending in the first 5 years alone roughly half your gross income every year on the costs associated with one child, not saving for the child, not college, just the baseline operational cost of keeping a small human and supervised while you go to work so you can keep affording the small human. And this is where the machine starts doing something weird, because most people assume the problem is the cost of the child itself. But actually, the deeper problem is what the child does to every other cost simultaneously. The vending machine doesn't just charge you for the product. It raises the price on everything in the machine the moment you press the button. Here's what I mean. You don't just need to pay for child care. You now need a bigger apartment or a house. Over the last 6 years, the income required to afford a medium-priced home in the United States jumped 70% from about $67,000 in 2019 to $114,000 in 2025. So, the moment you decide you need more space for a child, you are entering a housing market that has become 70% harder to afford in the span of 6 years. You're not fighting the same battle your parents fought, you're fighting a fundamentally different one. And if you can't buy, you rent. But about 67% of Gen Z adults say they struggle to cover their current housing costs, even without children, even in apartments they chose specifically because they were supposedly affordable. Even renting doesn't provide the reprieve it once did. Bank of America data shows Gen Z spending on rent and utilities outpaces all other generations. So, before the kid even arrives, before the diapers and the formula and the pediatrician visits, you have already spent on housing costs that went up because you needed space, child care costs that are eating 40 to 50% of one person's take-home salary, and a tax structure that doesn't really compensate you meaningfully for any of it. Families spend an average of 21.9% of their income just on the basic annual expenses to raise a small child. And that's the average. In states like Massachusetts, the annual cost of raising a child tops $44,221, reflecting high child care prices and some of the steepest housing costs in the country. 2 working parents in Massachusetts should aim to earn at least $124,842 between them to support themselves and a preschooler. $124,000 combined for 2 people to have 1 kid and not go backwards financially in one state. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but you just pick a cheaper state. And yes, technically you can, but here's the problem. The cheaper states are also the states with fewer job opportunities, lower median wages, weaker career growth prospects, and often fewer support systems for young families. The states that are genuinely affordable for raising children are not usually the states where a young ambitious person can build the kind of career that generates the income needed to afford those children in the first place. You're not solving the problem by moving. You're just relocating, which constraint is choking you. This is what I call the compression problem, and it's the first layer of why this is a system issue, not a character issue. The system has simultaneously made the high-income locations unaffordable for family formation, and the affordable locations less viable for income generation. It's a compression. You're getting squeezed from both ends, and you didn't design this. Nobody asked to stand in front of a broken vending machine. Let me put some actual math on this, because abstract arguments are easy to dismiss. Concrete math is harder to argue with. Take a hypothetical person, 26 years old. They did everything the system told them to do. They went to college, got a degree in something practical, started a job at $58,000 a year, which is above average for an entry-level position in their field. They live in a mid-tier city, not San Francisco, not New York, something like Nashville or Denver or Austin. They rent a 1-bedroom apartment for $1,400 a month. They have student loan debt. The average Gen Z student loan payment is $526 a month. Let's run the numbers. $58,000 gross. After federal and state taxes, you're looking at roughly $43,000 take home. Call it $3,580 per month. Monthly rent, $1,400. Student loans, $526. That's already $1,926 gone before food, before car, before utilities, before health insurance, before phone, before anything. You've got roughly $1,650 left for everything else. And you haven't accounted for the fact that you also need to save, because if you don't save, you never get to the down payment on a house, which means you never get out of the rent cycle, which means you never create the space needed for a child. Now, add a kid. Childcare alone for an infant is roughly $17,264 per year, which works out to about $1,440 per month. You don't have $1,440 per month. You have $1,650 for literally everything else you need to survive. Childcare plus everything else equals a number that is larger than your remaining income. And we haven't even accounted for the larger apartment you'd need, the medical costs of pregnancy and delivery, the additional food, the clothing, the equipment, nothing. This is not an irresponsibility story, this is a math story. The machine takes more than you earn, and the machine was not designed by bad people. It evolved, it compound grew its way into this shape over 30 years while wages didn't keep up, and now we act surprised that the people standing in front of it aren't pressing the button. While wage growth for young people has ticked up over the last several years, most of those gains have been negated by inflation. Since 2019, cumulative inflation has climbed to 26%, meaning you need $126 today to buy $100 worth of goods pre-pandemic. You know what that means in practice? It means the raise you got this year didn't actually make you richer. It made you break even if you were lucky. The vending machine quietly updated its prices while you were standing in line. Now, here's the thing most people miss when they talk about this. They focus on the direct costs of raising a child. The $17,000 in childcare, the cost of a bigger apartment, the healthcare, and yes, those are real, but there's a second category of cost that almost nobody models. The indirect costs, the opportunity costs, the things you don't spend money on, but that you lose anyway. Let me explain with a story, not mine, a pattern I've observed repeatedly. Two people, similar background, similar salary. One has a kid at 27, one doesn't. Fast forward 10 years, the one without the kid has, all else being equal, had 10 extra years of maximum savings capacity, maximum career flexibility, maximum risk tolerance. They've been able to take a pay cut to switch industries, do a startup, invest heavily in index funds, pick up side income streams, take a job in another city. They've compounded both their income and their savings aggressively. The one with the kid has done the opposite of all of those things, not because they were lazy or stupid, but because every one of those moves carries risk, and when you have a dependent, risk is a different price tag. You can't take a lower paying job to learn a new skill if you need the current salary to cover childcare. You can't move to a cheaper city if it means losing the job that's paying for everything. You can't start a business if the business might fail and you'd miss 3 months of rent and your kid loses childcare. The child is not just an expense, the child is a constraint on optionality. And optionality is the most valuable thing a 20-something has. This doesn't mean having children is a financial mistake. That's not the argument. The argument is that the system has made the optionality cost of having children astronomically high, specifically for people who are young, which is also the biologically optimal time to have children. The timing is off. The machine says press the button now, but the machine also charges you the most for pressing the button now, and rewards you most for pressing the button later. Except later, the machine starts charging you for fertility treatments. It's a bad machine. A genuinely structurally bad machine. Now, if you're finding this useful and you want to keep thinking about money the way systems actually work rather than the way Instagram tells you it works, subscribe. I put out videos exactly like this one, not motivational content, just analysis. That's the trade. Let's go deeper, because what I've described so far is the surface layer, the visible math. But there are 2 more layers underneath this, and they're stranger. Layer 2 is what I'm going to call the debt front-loading problem. And this one is specific to Gen Z in a way that it wasn't for previous generations. Think about the timeline of how a person used to build financial stability before having children. Roughly speaking, graduate at 22, work for 5 to 8 years debt-free or with manageable debt, accumulate savings, buy a house in their late 20s, have kids around 30 with a financial foundation that, while not perfect, was at least structurally stable. That was the rough sequence for the boomer generation. House prices were a reasonable multiple of annual salary, childcare was often handled by a stay-at-home parent or extended family, and crucially, the entry-level salaries of that era were not competing with the entry-level costs of this era. Gen Z enters that same timeline with a fundamentally different starting position. 84% of Gen Z with student debt have put off major investments such as buying a home or starting a business. 72% of Gen Z student borrowers make or have made employment decisions based on their student loan debt. Read that second stat again. 72% of Gen Z is choosing where to work and staying in jobs they might otherwise leave specifically because they need to keep paying off student loans. The debt is not just a financial burden, it's a career constraint. It's trapping people in jobs they'd otherwise leave for better opportunities because the risk of a gap in income while switching is too high when you have a fixed monthly debt obligation. As one financial analyst put it, this is going to delay major milestones like starting families, buying homes, and climbing the career ladder. Many will feel pressure to stay with companies that offer student loan repayment perks, curbing their upward mobility, and locking them into jobs they might otherwise leave. So, you have a generation that is starting life with a fixed debt obligation that constrains their career mobility, competing in a housing market that has appreciated 70% in income requirements in 6 years, trying to afford childcare costs that are the single largest expense category for families with young children on wages that have grown nominally but not in real purchasing power terms. This is not one problem. This is 4 problems stacked on top of each other, and the vending machine is running all 4 simultaneously. And here's the darkest part of this layer. The debt doesn't just cost money, it costs time. The years between 22 and 30 are the most financially critical years in a person's life in terms of compound growth. Every dollar you save at 23 is worth more than every dollar you save at 33 because it has 10 more years to compound. But if you're spending those years paying down debt instead of building assets, you're not just breaking even, you're losing the compounding period. You're losing the thing that makes time in the market so powerful, and you can never get those years back. The machine didn't just take your money, it took your time and it charged you interest on the time it took. Let me give you the contrarian take now because I always want to do this before someone in the comments does it for me. The contrarian argument is this: people in every generation have thought it was too expensive to have kids. People in the 1970s thought it was too expensive. People in the 1980s thought it was too expensive and they had kids anyway. So maybe this is just a perception problem, not a real cost problem. Here's why that argument fails. It's not wrong that every generation felt financial pressure, but the structure of the pressure has changed. In the 1970s and 80s, the cost pressure was real, but it was also offset by a system that somewhat compensated for it. Single-income households could afford a house. Childcare was not $17,000 a year because it was handled informally. Extended family networks were geographically intact. Job security existed in the form of pensions and long-term employment. The financial pressure was there, but the supporting infrastructure partially absorbed it. Today, all of those shock absorbers have been removed. Pensions are gone. Extended family networks have scattered because everyone followed job opportunities to different cities. Informal childcare has been replaced by formal institutions that cost as much as college tuition. The single-income household is mathematically impossible in most metro areas. You've got the same pressure and none of the cushion. That's not the same problem. You think the problem is that Gen Z is scared of financial pressure, but actually the problem is that the infrastructure that made that pressure survivable has systematically been dismantled and nobody replaced it with anything. Okay, cutaway. I want to be clear, the government solution to all of this is a $1,000 baby bonus for children born between 2025 and 2028. $1,000 for a child that cost $300,000. The $1,000 can't even be accessed until a child turns 18. That is the equivalent of someone handing you a coupon for $1 off a restaurant that charges $300 for a meal and then announcing a pro-natalist policy. Okay, cutaway over. Now, I want to show you why this isn't just an American problem, because when something becomes a global pattern, it stops being about culture and starts being about incentives. South Korea has a fertility rate of 0.75 births per woman, the lowest in the world. Japan's population has been declining for 15 years, and there are concerns that at the current rate, the country could eventually have a demographic crisis that is irreversible by around 2030. Norway, which is considered a global leader in parental leave and child care policy, saw its fertility rate drop dramatically from 1.98 children per woman in 2009 to 1.44 in 2024. This is the critical data point. Norway, one of the most family-friendly governments on the planet, one of the most generous parental leave systems, subsidized child care, strong wages relative to cost of living, high trust society, and its fertility rate is still collapsing. Why? Because the problem isn't purely economic, even though economics are driving most of it. There's a second-order effect here that is harder to quantify but very real. And this is layer 3. Layer 3 is what I'm going to call the optionality ratchet. And this one operates at the psychological level. Here's how it works. In previous generations, the default social script was work, marry, buy house, have children in roughly that order within a roughly defined time frame. This wasn't necessarily a good script, but it was a default. A default removes decision fatigue. A default allocates certain costs as non-negotiable. You didn't have to sit down with a spreadsheet and decide whether to have a child. The social infrastructure made the decision for you, and the economic infrastructure made it survivable. In 2026, every step of that sequence has been made optional, which sounds like freedom, and it is freedom, but freedom has a cost that nobody talks about, which is that every option you don't choose stays available and therefore stays desirable. When you don't have children, you can still travel, you can still change careers, you can still build a startup, you can still move, you can still reinvent yourself. All of those options are alive. Children permanently close most of those options, or at minimum make them dramatically harder and more expensive. And the longer you wait, the more of those open options you accumulate, and the higher the psychological cost of closing them. This is the optionality ratchet. Every year you don't have children, the list of things you've come to value about not having children gets longer. Your career flexibility, your savings trajectory, your ability to take risks, your weekends, your sleep. And every year the implicit price of giving all of that up goes up, not because children actually cost more emotionally, but because you've gotten used to the alternative. The vending machine has been giving you something else for free, and now it's asking you to stop taking the free thing and pay for the expensive product instead. And here's the really dark version of this. The economic system is actually rewarding the people who don't press the vending machine button. Not in any morally intentional way, but functionally, the people who delay having children are accumulating more capital, more career advancement, more savings, more financial stability, more compounded returns than their peers who had children early. The system doesn't mean to disincentivize children, but it does. And the signals are clear and rational. Let me do a mini case study to make this concrete. Take Marcus. He's 24, graduating with a degree in information technology. His starting salary is $64,000. He lives in Austin, Texas. He has $22,000 in student loan debt. He has a girlfriend of 2 years. They're in a good place. They talk about kids, not yet, but eventually. The plan is kids at around 30. Typical rent in Austin right now is roughly $1,910 a month. Marcus and his girlfriend split that, so his share is $955 a month. His student loan payment is about $360 a month. After taxes on $64,000, he takes home roughly $4,100 a month. After rent and loans, he has $2,785 left. He saves about $800 a month. He spends the rest on car, food, utilities, gym subscriptions, and the occasional weekend trip. He's doing well relative to most people his age. He's saving, which most of his peers aren't. He's not drowning. Now, let's run the scenario where Marcus and his girlfriend have a child at 26 instead of 30. Childcare, $1,440 a month. They need a 2-bedroom. Their shared rent goes from $1,910 to $2,450. Marcus's share of rent goes up to $1,225. Marcus now needs to cover $1,440 in childcare, either splitting it with his girlfriend or absorbing it. Let's say they split childcare to $720 each per month. Marcus's monthly picture: $1,225 rent, $360 student loan, $720 childcare. That's $2,305 before everything else. He has $1,795 left for car insurance, food, utilities, healthcare, and any emergency. He can no longer save $800 a month. He can save almost nothing, maybe $100 to $200 if he's extremely disciplined. We zoom forward to age 34. His peer who had the child at 30 has had 8 years of the old savings rate. At $800 a month for 8 years, assuming an average market return of 7% annually in a well-diversified index fund. That's roughly $100,000 in invested assets plus compounding. Marcus, who had the child at 26, has saved significantly less during the child's first 4 years and is only now getting his savings rate back up as child care costs drop. He's behind, not massively, but structurally behind in a way that compounds. The gap doesn't close easily because the peer who waited also had faster career advancement because they had more flexibility to take risks and promotions that required relocation. This is not destiny. Marcus can do well, but the point is the system is not neutral. The system rewards delay, not because anyone decided to penalize early parenting, but because the cost structure evolved in a way that makes early parenting economically suboptimal relative to delay. And the more financially literate the generation is, the more clearly they see this calculation, and the more they push the decision back. In 2012, Americans ages 20 to 39 planned to have about 2-3 children on average. By 2023, that number had dropped to around 1.8 children. They're not saying they don't want children, they're saying implicitly that the price is too high right now. Keep waiting, revisit later, which is a rational response to a rational set of incentives. The problem is that later keeps getting postponed, and the fertility window does not extend indefinitely. Among mothers under 30, birth rates decreased between 2024 and 2025. The findings indicate that Generation Z is having fewer children and waiting longer to have them. Women over 30, meanwhile, including those in their 40s, are having more children, with each age group in that range seeing an increase in birth rates. So, you're seeing a bifurcation. People who can afford it are having children later. People who can't afford it at any point are not having them at all. And the ones who can afford it at 35 or 40 are typically the ones who spent their 20s and early 30s building financial stability. Not because they were lucky, because the system created a perverse incentive structure where delaying family formation is the financially rational move. Let me hit you with the fourth layer now because this is the one that makes all of this very hard to fix. And it's the one nobody in a political ad will ever explain to you correctly. The fourth layer is the child care market structure problem, and it's one of the cleanest examples of a system that has a bad equilibrium that no single actor can exit. Child care in the United States is extraordinarily expensive compared to most peer countries. Not because child care workers are getting rich, they're not. Child care costs are by far the highest expense for families with children under 5, but the people delivering the service are earning wages that in many cases hover around $15 to $20 an hour. So, where does the money go? It goes into the operational structure of child care facilities, into the real estate, into the regulatory compliance costs, into the staffing ratios mandated by state law for infant care specifically, which require 1 adult for every 3 or 4 infants, which means you need a lot of staff. Which means the cost per child is high even if each individual worker is paid modestly. Infant care is roughly 20% more expensive than preschool age care, largely because state licensing rules require lower child-to-staff ratios for infants. So, you have a market where the provider is paying staff poorly, the customer is paying an enormous amount, and nobody in the middle is extracting a massive profit. It's a cost structure problem, not an exploitation problem. There's no villain here. There's just a very expensive product being produced by a labor-intensive industry in high-cost locations. And nobody has figured out how to make it cheaper without ever lowering the regulatory standards that protect child safety or subsidizing it through taxes, which the tax base is not currently structured to do at scale. Daycare and preschool costs grew 28% between January 2015 and April 2025, according to the BLS Consumer Price Index, outpacing general inflation over the same period. And a Care.com survey found that the average parent spends 20% of household income on child care. 20% of household income on one thing for the first 5 years of a child's life. That's 1/5 of everything you earn before rent, before food, before your own retirement savings, before anything going to child care. And then when the child is in school full-time, some of that cost drops, but not all of it, because after school care, summer camps, and school activity costs start to fill the gap. The vending machine is not a simple vending machine. It's a machine with multiple coin slots. You put money in slot 1 for childcare, you put money in slot 2 for housing, slot 3 for healthcare, slot 4 for education, and the machine keeps making the mechanical noise of progress, but the product just keeps hanging there. Second cutaway, people online will tell you the solution is to just move to a lower cost of living area. Appreciate the advice, very helpful. Let me just take my $64,000 tech salary and see if that transfers to a rural town where the median household income is $41,000 and the largest employer is a school district. We'll circle back. End cutaway. Now, here's what I find genuinely interesting about all of this, because I'm not interested in problems without second-order analysis. I'm interested in what this means downstream. Programs like Social Security use current workers as a tax base to provide benefits for retirees. If the ratio of retirees to workers increases, it becomes hard to keep such programs solvent. At the same time, the share of the US population over 65 is growing rapidly and increasingly tapping into social services like Social Security and Medicare, with a declining population of younger working adults unable to shoulder the costs. This is the second-order effect. The birth rate isn't just a personal choice story, it's a fiscal architecture story. The entire structure of the American retirement system assumes a growing workforce. It assumes that the ratio of workers to retirees stays roughly stable or improves. That assumption is breaking down. And the generation that is choosing not to have children is in part responding rationally to a system that has made children unaffordable, but the system needs children to remain functional. So, by making children unaffordable, the system is gradually sawing off the branch it's sitting on. This is not a metaphor. This is arithmetic. Fewer workers means less tax revenue. Less tax revenue means smaller Social Security payouts. Smaller payouts means more financial pressure on retirees. More financial pressure on retirees means more financial pressure on their adult children who are already financially stressed. And those adult children are precisely the Gen Z and millennial people we started this conversation with. The vending machine is not just broken, it's eating itself. Now, I said I would give you 3 practical takeaways at the end, and I mean practical, not set up a college fund for your hypothetical future child. Real structural things you should understand and act on. Takeaway 1. The financial math of having children changes dramatically based on 2 variables that most people don't optimize for: child care access and location. These 2 variables together can swing your annual child care cost by $10,000 to $20,000. Costs vary by up to tens of thousands of dollars depending on the state a family calls home. And some states saw large swings in the cost of raising a child over just 1 year. The difference between living somewhere with available regulated child care and living somewhere that is a child care desert is not marginal. It's the difference between the math working and the math not working. If family formation is a goal, optimizing your location for child care access and cost relative to salary is one of the highest leverage moves you can make. This is not romantic advice, it's system optimization. Takeaway 2. The opportunity cost window is real and you should treat it like a financial instrument. The years between 22 and 30 are the compound growth years. Every dollar you don't invest in those years is not just a dollar lost, it's a dollar that will never have that growth window again. If you are delaying family formation, you should be using that delay aggressively and deliberately to build financial infrastructure, not passively enjoying it. That means maxing your 401k, building savings, reducing debt, and building income streams that will survive the transition into a higher cost life phase. The delay only helps you if you use it. Most people use it to upgrade their lifestyle and then discover at 32 that they've got the same financial foundation they had at 25. Don't do that. If the machine is charging you to wait, make sure the waiting is producing something. Takeaway 3, the real bottleneck is not salary, it's cost structure. Most people think the solution to not being able to afford a child is to earn more money. And yes, more money helps, but a more accurate diagnosis is that your cost structure is the problem, not your income. You can earn $80,000 and be in a worse position to have children than someone earning $55,000 in a different city with cheaper childcare, lower rent, and family nearby who can provide informal childcare support. A $5,000 difference in annual income is not as valuable as a $15,000 difference in annual childcare costs. Attack the cost structure first. The income optimization is important, but it's the second move, not the first. None of this is about telling you what to choose. The point of this entire video was one thing. The system has financial signals embedded in it that systematically push rational people away from a decision that the same system depends on them making. That's a broken machine. And the first step to dealing with a broken machine is understanding that it's broken, not blaming yourself for the product not dropping. If you made it here, subscribe. It's one button and it costs nothing, which for a change is the correct price.